Go ahead.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to a new Quran study. And God willing, today we're going to read from Surah 47 and start with verse 24. I seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. 24. Why do they not study the Quran carefully? Do they have locks on their minds? So, mashallah, this verse is a powerful reminder from God about the importance of reflecting deeply on the Quran. And as we know, many traditional Muslims focus on reciting and memorizing the Quran instead of uh, thinking and understanding it, because they think that doing that earns them credits, but they neglect actually reflecting on its meaning. And when they seek understanding, they don't go to Quran. Instead, they turn to other sources like Hadith and Sunnah and other books, which are lies, attributed to God and His Messenger, as we know. And this this is a really serious mistake, because God made the Quran complete, detailed, and sufficient for guidance. So we see, in Quran that God encouraged us to use our minds to understand this message and remove the locks of traditions and blindly following others that keep us from the truth. So the true guidance comes from the Quran alone. MashaAllah. And 25. Surely those who slide back after the guidance has been manifested to them, the devil has enticed them and led them on. So this verse is a clear warning about, what can happen when people neglect this responsibility of studying and reflecting on the Quran. That can, opens the door to be led astray by Satan, and that's what he actually wants. That's his job. But God wants us to take the Quran seriously, reflect on its teachings, and remain steadfast on its path. So, in order to be saved and guided in the right path, God willing. 26. This is because they said to those who hated what God has sent down, "We will obey you in certain matters." God fully knows their secret conspiracies. Um, so, as we see here in this verse, God talks about people who hated and rejected the truth of the Quran. Those people in the past, they made up lies like the fabricated Hadith and Sunnah to suit their own desires. So basically, they found the Quran's clear guidance inconvenient. So they created stories that matched their own agendas. And for those who obeyed them and followed them, they followed these lies. They are actually hypocrites mentioned in this verse. They may appear, that they accept the Quran, but actually they follow false teachings. So, so here the lesson is clear. So those who created, and follow false teachings are distancing themselves from God's guidance, and God knows their actions and will hold them accountable, as it mentioned in verse. Next verse, 27. How will it be for them when the angels put them to death? They will beat them on their faces and their rear ends. This is because they followed what angered God and hated the things that pleased him. Consequently, he has nullified their works. So, in these two verses, it describes, the severe consequences for those who turn away from God's guidance and choose to follow, other paths, the paths that anger God. And the word to be beaten on their faces and rear ends, it's it means, humiliation and suffering, showing how God punishes those who go against him. So God make it clear that, the works of those who act against his will not be accepted at all. 29. Did those who harbor doubts in their hearts think that God will not bring out their evil thoughts? If we will, we can expose them for you, so that you can recognize them just by looking at them. However, you can recognize them by just looking at their actions. So, in these verses, mashallah, it shows, the idea that God knows the true intentions and hidden thoughts of every individuals, even if they try to hide them from others. And when God says we can recognize hypocrites by the way they talk, it's interesting. It means that their speech reveals their true intentions, even if they try to hide them. And the hypocrites may say things that contradict their actions or beliefs, or their words may expose their insincerity, and lack of the true faith. But I can give examples. For example, the hypocrites may speak in a way that cause division, um, or spread doubts, or show, kind of disrespect to God's guidance. Sometimes their words may sound convincing, but if you really reflect on it, they reveal a lack of sincerity, or some hidden motives. So this is why God says that the way they talk is a sign for the believer to recognize them. Um, 31. We will certainly put you to the test in order to distinguish those among you who strive and steadfastly persevere. We must expose your true qualities. So God, promised that He will expose our true qualities through some tests, to reveal, our inner character, such as patience, trusting in God, and sincerity, striving in the cause of God, um, following His commands, staying true, to the truth, despite the devil's temptation, and steadfastly persevere in doing what pleases God. All this can show, the qualities of um, good qualities. So it involves being patient and committed, even when we face sometimes, challenges and tests. 32. Those who disbelieve and repel from the path of God and oppose the messenger after the guidance has been manifested for them will never hurt God in the least. Instead, He nullifies their works. Um, Here, the verse tells us that those who reject God's guidance and oppose the messenger cannot harm God. And plus, their efforts are, nullified because, God will nullify their works. And this relates to the previous verse where, tests reveal true faith. Those who turn away from God's path, fail the test, and their actions have no value anymore. 33. O you who believe, you should obey God and obey the messenger, otherwise all your works will be in vain. Those who disbelieve and repel from the path of God, then die as disbelievers, God will never forgive them. So, as we know from the Quran that idol worship and disbelief will nullify all good deeds. So, when it says that all your works will be in vain, here it refers to all actions, such as prayers, charity, fasting, and good deeds, all good deeds. So if someone does not follow God's commands and does not obey the messenger, all these acts will be not accepted by God, because without believing and submitting totally to God alone, these actions, lose their purpose and reward from God. That's why we should be careful. 35. Therefore, you should not waver and surrender in pursuit of peace, for you are guaranteed victory, and God is with you. He will never waste your efforts. Mashallah, beautiful verse. So when we strive to follow God alone and reject idolatry, we are actively pursuing peace, both in this life and the hereafter. So in this life, we enter God's kingdom, experiencing peace, free of any worry or fear or chaos, any chaos. caused by Satan. And this pursuit leads us to the ultimate eternal peace, which is paradise. And therefore, the verse encourages the believers to stay steadfast, in following God alone, as this pursuit of peace guarantees them victory. MashaAllah. 36. This worldly life is no more than play and vanity, but if you believe and lead a righteous life, He will reward you without asking you for any money. If He asked you for money to the extent of creating a hardship for you, you might have become stingy, and your hidden evil might be exposed. Subhanallah. So the hidden evil might be exposed. So I want to highlight on this the hidden evil. So here it refers to qualities like selfishness, greed, or a lack of generosity, which may not be obvious until a person is faced with the test of giving or sacrificing. So, as God mentioned, if He had asked them for money or put them through a hardship, it would expose these um, hidden flaws in their character. And so in general, this shows that true righteousness is not just about appearances, but about how a person behaves when faced with real tests and sacrifices. Um, Next verse, warning to the Arabs. You are invited to spend in the cause of God, but some of you turn stingy. The stingy are stingy towards their own souls. God is rich, while you are poor. If you turn away, He will substitute other people in your place, and they will not be like you. The footnotes. The footnote says the Quran was given to the Arabs in their language for 1400 years, but they clearly rejected it and refused to believe that it is complete. They fabricated hadith and sunnah. So interesting verse. So as we know from history and from the Quran, that Arabs made several mistakes. I want to mention some of those mistakes to be clear. So first of all, they rejected the Quran despite it being revealed in their own language, which is the Arabic. And also they fabricated hadith and sunnah, distorting the teachings of the Quran. Also, they were stingy and selfish, unwillingly to spend in the cause of God, as God mentioned. And instead, they prioritize this worldly life more. Also, they rejected the messenger of the covenant, who was prophesied in Quran, due to their pride and arrogance. Also, they denied the Quran's miracles, including the mathematical miracle of 19. and they were unappreciative of God's blessings, because all these are God's blessings. And it's mentioned in another verse, actually Surah 6, verse 89. Despite being given the scripture, wisdom, and prophethood, they fail to value these gifts from God. And God warns that He will replace them with new people who will embrace His guidance, and they will not be like them. They will live humbly, be appreciative of His blessing, and they will follow the Quran sincerely. So by learning from the past as a new generation, we need to make sure that we do not fall into the same mistakes, and instead we should become a generation that truly submits to God alone, follow His guidance in every aspects of our lives, inshallah. Now moving to next surah, surah 48, victory, al-fath. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. We have we have bestowed upon you, O Messenger, a great victory. The footnotes says this profound statement consists of 19 letters, indicating that our generation is the generation of victory for God's purified, unified, and consolidated religion. Submission 31985. It is our generation that witnessed the revelations of God's great miracle in the Quran. See Appendix number 1. MashaAllah, this verse is very mashallah interesting. We have bestowed upon you, O Messenger, a great victory. So this, as mentioned in footnotes, this victory is reflecting the ultimate success of God's guidance and the establishment of submission as a unified and purified religion, mashallah. And also, as mentioned in footnotes, this verse contains 19 letters related with the mathematical miracle of the Quran, and this miracle shows the importance of our generation, which has witnessed the revelation of this proof, mashallah, to follow God's true message as detailed in the Quran. And I want to mention something that the messenger of the covenant, Rashad Khalifa, mentioned something that America will become the heart of submission, because America's values of freedom and diversity makes it a very good place, for the pure message of the Quran to flourish and spread. And this is God's promise, in Quran. In verses we read earlier, to replace, the unappreciative people with others who will uphold his message sincerely. Plus, he promised them victory, which is very an honor, mashallah. The next verse, whereby God forgives your past sins as well as future sins, and perfects his blessings upon you and guides you in a straight path. Additionally, God will support you with an unwavering support. So, mashallah, here we see that God promised to support the believers with his unwavering support. For our generation, it is, mashallah, very special honor to witness the mathematical miracle of 19 in the Quran. And being part of the blessed group of submitters to God alone is really a great opportunity and honor, as we know that God guarantees, that his religion will prevail despite, all this objection from the disbelievers. So, mashallah, these verses, through these verses, God motivates us, mashallah, to remain steadfast and to be grateful for this opportunity to strive in his cause. Mashallah. Verse 4, he's the one who places contentment in the hearts of believers to augment more faith. In addition to their faith, to God belongs all forces of the heavens and the earth. God is omniscient, most wise. So, mashallah, we know from the Quran that contentment comes only from God, as he is the source of peace and happiness for our souls. And so when we truly believe and submit to him alone, we automatically receive his contentments, mashallah, which helps us accept whatever happens in our life, whether good or challenging. And this feelings of peace helps to grow our faith, because it shows that we trust God's plan, knowing that he knows what is best for us, mashallah. 5, he will certainly admit the believing man and woman into gardens with flowing streams, wherein they abide forever. He will remit their sins. This is in the sight of God a great triumph. And he will requite the hypocrite man and woman and the idol-worshipping men and women, for they have harbored evil thoughts about God. Their evil will backfire against them, for God is angry with them, condemns them, and has prepared for them Gehenna. What a miserable destiny. So, mashallah, the first verse is talking about the believers, that they will be, rewarded with eternal paradise. And the opposite side, the hypocrites and idol worshippers will face punishment in Gehenna for their evil thoughts about God. So I want to highlight, evil thoughts about God, harboring evil thoughts about God meanings. So it means that, having beliefs or ideas that misrepresent God's true nature qualities. Um, there are many examples, but we can just mention some of them. Okay, so um, the idea, for example, that Muhammad's intercession is necessary for salvation contradicts God's direct relationship with his creatures, you know, and that's against his true qualities. Also, the belief that God is like a secretary to Prophet Muhammad contradicts his supreme and independent power. MashaAllah. Believing also that God orders violence against non-disbelievers misrepresents his mercy and justice, except for defense, of course. Also, for example, practices like circumcision also contradicts God's perfect design, which is free from harm and full of compassion. And there's a lot of, there's just few examples I want to share, but all these ideas, distort God's true attributes, be He glorified. And that's why God is angry with such people who have such evil thoughts about God, even if they don't, know it, you know, but we should be aware of it. Um, Verse 7, to God belongs all the forces in the heavens and the earth. God is almighty, most wise. We have sent you as a witness, a bearer of good news, and a warner, that you people may believe in God and his messenger, and reverence him, and observe him, and glorify him day and night. So mashallah, this verse is a reminder for us that God controls everything, and he's powerful and wise. As he mentioned that he sent the prophet as a witness, giver of good news, and a warner, and all of that is for one goal, is for people to believe in God, honor him, and glorify him all the time, in order for them to be saved. Bless God, he deserved that. Mashallah, be he glorified. You should support God's messenger. Surely those who pledge allegiance to you are pledging allegiance to God. God approves their pledge. He places his hand above their hands. Those who violate such a pledge commit the violation of to their own detriment. As for those who fulfill their pledge with God, he will grant them a great recompense. Subhanallah. So here, when people pledge allegiance to the messenger, they are also pledging allegiance to God, since the messenger's role is to deliver God's message. And supporting the messenger means following the teachings of the Quran and the messenger's guidance, which are based on God's commands. Also, spreading the message is a way to support too. So by doing this, we are submitting to God's will and showing our obedience to Him. MashaAllah. Verse 11. The sedentary Arabs who stayed behind will say, "We have been preoccupied with our money and our families, so ask forgiveness for us." They utter with their tongues what is not in their hearts. Say, who can protect you from God if He willed any adversity for you, or if He willed any blessing for you? God is fully cognizant of everything you do. You secretly believe that the messenger and the believers will be defeated and never come back to their families, and this was firmly established in your hearts. You harbored evil thoughts and turned into wicked people. Anyone who refuses to believe in God and His messenger, we have prepared for the disbeliever a hellfire. So, so we can say that these last verses serves as examples of those who violate their pledge to God, as mentioned in the earlier verses. So, so here the sedentary Arabs who stayed behind and showed insincerity in their words and actions failed to honor their commitment to support the messenger and God's cause. So they made, fake excuses, and their hearts harbored doubts and evil thoughts about the believers. And so that shows that, the words alone are not enough, and God looks into the hearts of His servants. We should be aware of that, to not fall on the same mistakes. So here I'm gonna stop, God willing, but I want to just give a very short summary of what we read today. Um, so God teaches us through the Quran to worship Him alone, avoid hypocrisy and idol worship, support His guidance, and appreciate His blessings. Also, by staying sincere and steadfast, we guarantee His reward and avoid the mistakes of the past generations. Um, this is it, and thank you for listening. And if you have any questions or comments,
Mashallah, thank
thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Good study. Did you read up until verse 13?
13. Yes.
Okay, mashallah. Thank you.
MashaAllah.
So these are really interesting verses, especially the verses about, the people who repel from the path of God and who oppose the messenger after the guidance has been manifested for them, right? And there's so many people. I'm talking about verse 32 in Surah 47. And so there's so many people that claim to believe in the miracle and claim to believe in the messenger, but then they, prefer their own opinions and put their own opinions above God and His messenger, and pushes them by, making them more intellectual because they like to consider themselves, ones who are not, who are using their brains. I think we have very many examples. This is a typical theme I see, with these people, and they feel that they're very knowledgeable and very much of like philosophers and experts in they're trying to find like the deeper meaning, you know, I was just talking to this one person. He had some comments about the app, and he messaged me, and then I found out, like, he said, "Oh yeah, I believe in the miracle too, but I practice. I use the same method as Rashad, but slightly in a different way." And then I was just dug deeper into it, and he would avoid answering, like what he meant by it, and eventually, like I gathered that, he, picks and chooses whatever he wants, and then, they're doing their own translations and everything. I don't know, some confusion there. But, the Quran is, and then when I told him that, I believe that he might be one of those people that God talks about that puts their opinion above God and the messenger. Then he said, no, he says, we can all find the path of God. I was so weird. We can all find the path of God. We can all find God in our hearts, and all our paths like conversion to one or something like that. And then reminded me of the verse that God talks about these people. The people who choose other than the believer's way. They're not going to be on the same path. It's like, yeah, they say, "Oh yeah, just take any road and you're gonna get to the right destination." Which never works in reality in this world. Why they think that this would work in the hereafter when you're trying to find your way back to God in this way, that they think like they can just do whatever, and think that God doesn't care. But these verses are very clear about the truth, because God sends a messenger with the right guidance. Now, why would you try to follow someone else and think that the messenger is incapable of giving you the message correctly? That you have to, you basically, it's the ego that wants these people to go and look for other things, and look for falsehood in what the messenger of God brings from God. Like, how, what do they think, like what do they think even God is? Like, God doesn't know who he's sending? Like, he can come and say whatever he wants. um and this shows to us why God is instructing us with such strict words, and reminding us over and over that we have to follow the messenger if you want to follow the message, because the messenger is from God, right? If someone like sends from a company, sends their authorized representative, then we listen to them because we know this person's representing the company. And then you say, no, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to do whatever I want, and then of course, he's going to face the consequences, whatever it might be. So, I mean, these verses are just good reminders that we should accept the message as it is, the message as it has been preached. We have been given so much detail and such clarity from the messenger, delivered in easy English, when it comes to the translation and everything else, all the explanations of everything. So it's really a no-brainer for us to just follow what has been given to us. Like, it's been handed over to us, like, I would say, almost in a silver platter. So we should just follow the message and thank God and show our appreciation by just not trying to dispute it.
Yeah, good point. I know what you mean about, how there's people that have fallen off the path and deviated, and they're trying to sound all poetic or philosophical, trying to search for, the meaning and understanding is obvious, and the truth, is there. But it's like they try to dissect it to the point of, bringing themselves to just talking in vain, engaging in vain talk. It just reminds me of this website. It's called Quran-Islam.org. I was trying to find it, but essentially this person had posted an article saying that technically hell may not last forever because God could do anything, and so he used a verse that says, I don't know if it's from Surah 78, but it's the verse that I'm sure y'all heard it, y'all know which one I'm talking about, but it's the one that says they will last there and forever until the decree of your Lord, or in accordance with God's will. And so he tried to make an argument and tried to sound, you know, like a pseudo intellectual, or he was a pseudo intellectual. That's the way he was sounding, making an argument that hell could possibly have an end, because just based off the verse, and I mean he wrote up like paragraphs on this,
Sorry,
and
who
it's
was
just
that?
huh?
Who was that?
This is the guy who runs Quran-Islam.org. I think I
Oh,
came across his website like 10 years ago.
right, yeah.
But yeah, he has some wild ideas. Like I used to like reading, before I even found this group. I mean, I'd
Yeah.
known about the the Quran,
Mm-hmm.
transcription audios and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But his website was like the only one I knew about, and I
Uh-huh.
checked on it years later, and then I seen this is a new one he posted, but uh, it was he's basically saying that hell may not have an ending. It's up to God if it does or not.
Uh-huh.
Like God could, kind of like the same. I think I don't know if it was from this guy, but there was a guy that
Uh-huh.
says, well, technically a camel can pass through a needle's eye,
Uh-huh.
if God willed, and so therefore God could end hell if he wanted to, or something like that.
Are you at a park or some children's park?
Uh-uh.
Are you at a children's park?
Wait, I can't hear you.
No, so are you at a park? Children's park or
No,
something?
no, no. I'm at the gym.
Oh,
Could
same,
you hear
same,
me
same.
okay? Huh?
Right, yeah.
Could you hear me okay, though?
Yeah, I could hear you, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I think, kind of like, people trip themselves up sometimes, like when they're, in
Mm-hmm.
relation to verse 32.
Right.
After things have been made clear and obvious, I think they,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
you
basically
know,
Satan that strokes their egos and makes them think that they're people that they don't have to follow the messenger. They're better than the messenger, basically. So they should
yeah,
know
exactly.
better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they start correcting stuff that doesn't even need to be corrected, or that
Mm-hmm.
it's like they're finding faults that aren't even there, just to,
Mm-hmm. Go
and
backwards.
I think too, man, people, maybe people at the time of the messenger, it could have been a test for the egos, because if the
Mm-hmm.
messenger gives them a compliment or says, "Oh, this person,
Mm-hmm.
helped uh, bring,
Mm-hmm.
this facet of the miracle and stuff," and these people start getting,
Mm-hmm.
it just takes one
Right.
little thing for them to get blown up egos, and that's a
Right.
test in of itself. Because if something like that, you
Mm-hmm.
allow something like that to fester, then I mean, you're not
Mm-hmm.
a good person to begin with. So that was probably a test for these people to
Mm-hmm.
see how they would,
Exactly.
let it get to their heads and then think they're high
Yeah.
and mighty, just like Satan thought he
Mm-hmm.
was in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It just needs a little spark to expose it. Like Satan. Yeah, another interesting thing about I see also wanted to comment on was it's something we've been talking about recently. I noticed that so the last verse of Surah 47, you can see it says in bold in the actual Quran, with the Messenger of the Covenant, he put this verse in bold, the entire verse, and it says, "If you turn away, he will substitute other people in your place, and they will not be like you." And as the footnote says, they were given the Quran and they rejected it and refused it, and they didn't believe it was complete, and they fabricated Hadith and Sunnah. And so, based on this verse, we understand that the Arabs have been dismissed from the path of God, and with this verse, the goddess was talking about it, but this verse is giving them a warning that if they turn away, that God will replace them. And so after the messenger of the covenant came and they refused to believe and refused to take heed from the warning, the messenger explained how God has dismissed the Arabs from God's grace, and not a single Arab will come into submission, like a pure Arab from like the Arabian Peninsula will come into submission. And we know God's plan is to eventually annihilate these people. And so this is also referring to that, because not only has the message been taken away from them, but these people will be entirely wiped out, when the smoke comes, because it's going to burn them alive practically when the asteroid hits, God willing. So, and then also we see that right after this verse, we have the surah titled Victory. So it kind of, to me, it kind of symbolizes that after the smoke hits, that the entire world will come to accept submission will prevail, as God's promise has been prophesied, right? The messenger of the covenant talked about it, and he explained how this was going to happen within 50 years. And you can see it's almost been like what, 35 or so years, have already passed since he said it. So it should happen pretty soon, is what
Yeah,
it
that's a good
seems.
point.
Yeah.
I didn't think about the last verse of 47,
Hmm.
and then you see the victory at 48,
Hmm.
or the next verse title.
Hmm.
SubhanAllah. Yeah, I mean, even like these people from Palestine, or these Arabs back from my hometown. When you talk to the man, it's a guy my age. He ran a vape shop.
Hmm.
And dude, they don't really even care about the Quran, or if you try to talk to him, I don't even think he knew. Uh,
Hmm.
I think, sir, asked him if I was reciting 113 and 114 correctly,
Hmm.
and he spoke really good English. I've known him for a while, and then I don't know, and then I think he started talking about hadith after, and he couldn't really give me an answer. Like, I don't really think they're interested in what
Hmm.
they've been given directly.
Hmm.
It's just interesting to see, like, just the few that I've come across personally.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember I met one Palestinian, and he became a submitter because he liked a girl who used to be a submitter, and then they got divorced, and then he reverted uh, to Sunni Islam.
Uh, oh
Yeah,
wow!
and then the girl declared messengership.
Oh, she became a
She became a messenger.
she became.
Then I told him, I told him, funny thing, I was still in touch with him on like LinkedIn or something, and I told him, I said, I said, she became a messenger, like she said she's a messenger, and I thought, like, he's gonna join me and say no, and he's like, yeah, maybe she is a messenger.
Oh man.
I'm like, he doesn't accept Rashad as a messenger, but he accepts his ex-wife as a
Yeah.
messenger.
Yeah, and I went back and checked just because you were just talking about that. Yeah, like my comments are still gone, but all my other ones like are there on that
Hmm.
video.
Oh, really? Hmm.
Yeah,
That's pretty crazy.
definitely some filtering going on. I don't. I
Hmm.
can try on another video, but I'll show you when I get
Hmm.
back home, God willing. Like
Hmm.
I'll show you what it does.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting because I recently I gave the sermon and I talked about it in the sermon. And the sermon's still up though, but probably it got uh, you know deprioritized.
Yeah, that's what they'll do too. They won't
Right.
advertise or
Hmm.
promote your stuff like
Right.
other. Yeah, because I mean, the person that like when I said no, it's not in the Bible. That one was left up. I had two other messages left up, but and I tried reposting three different times, and I
Hmm.
even tried editing my original comment
Hmm.
that said something different. And that got deleted, and then I reposted it, wording it differently. So
Hmm.
I'll show you what I mean. But
Right. Right.
I mean, it was on a popular. It was on one of the popular Neil deGrasse
Hmm.
videos. That's talking
Hmm.
about us. I mean, a lot of people
Right.
would have are reading these comments and stuff. So
Right. I think everything is in accordance with God's will. I guess God wills that these people are kept in the dark until it actually comes to those who only you know. But eventually,
yeah,
God has a plan to save the believers. That's the part that I think about. Is that the messenger of the covenant when he talked about the smoke. He said that I believe it's going to happen somewhere in 1990. And so he was expecting it in his lifetime. You know, and so like how would that work in terms of it being a global catastrophe and all the debris and sun being blocked. I mean, everybody's going to be affected in some way, right? And so
right.
like how would that even work, that if it's coming in the next couple few years, couple of years, then how does that work for people who are on the right path? First of all, like it worries me, like say we are on the right path. We're on the right path, God willing we are. So that we don't get affected. Like for example, like when COVID hit, like I was praying to God that I don't get affected by it. And I mean, thank God eventually I didn't. But that was my prayer. One of my prayers is like I didn't want to get affected by it. And like with the smoke too, I mean, it's gonna bring probably going to bring a lot of diseases too when the sun is not going to be there for so for such a long period,
Yeah,
and
stack up with
darkness,
vitamin D3.
acid rain, yeah, and all that, yeah,
Yeah.
viruses probably.
Subhanallah, brother. This is probably like a off-topic question, or
Hmm.
but it's just interesting. Like, it's interesting how so many people, they say that there's submitters and they follow submission, but it's like you don't see like you don't see a community, of them.
Hmm.
Like everybody is separated, and
Hmm.
we know that that's something from Satan, that does these things. And you see in certain groups, like, one group follows circumcision, and other things, that, why they don't just follow, like you were explaining in the beginning, what the messenger brought, and that will bring
Hmm.
unity, but this is,
Hmm.
you see, so many people say that they're submitters and they follow submission, but they're not
Hmm.
together, they're all separated.
Hmm. Can you explain it further? Like when you say they're not together, they're separated. Like,
Like, certain groups,
uh-huh.
like Masjid, Tucson, Adib.
Mm-hmm.
Like all these people, and Adib was even in around where when the messenger was
Mm-hmm.
alive. But if you pay attention, I mean, if you like see, like they all follow different things. They don't follow what the religion that the messenger brought.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, the thing is, the beautiful thing is that, God says that He does not need anybody, So even if nobody on earth, worship God, actually became a submitter, and the entire world was hypocrite, they don't hurt God in the least, I mean, God is still God. He has just given us this chance out of His own grace for those who actually deserve to be redeemed, right? So everybody who's doing all these things is barely just going to you know, um, hurt themselves, and they're the ones who are putting themselves, in danger of going to hell. Which I mean, God says that the majority of majority of believers, you know, majority of people who believe, they don't believe without committing some kind of idol worship, right? And so we see that these people fall into idolatry this way, and whether idolizing their leaders or upholding some other sources, right? They are becoming idol worshippers essentially, So I mean, that's just God's system, And as far as people being separated and dropping out, yeah, I mean, it would be nice for them to be united for God's truth, But because they have, decided to follow different things, they have divided themselves from the religion, from the truth, and basically, it doesn't. It's actually a healthy process. It's actually, like the Messenger of the Covenant described it. He said it's a sifting process. That's supposed to happen. That God will distinguish these people. God will expose the hypocrites, and God will separate them from each other. But at the same time, obviously, it's in Satan's favor that he wants that from people, right? He wants them to be separated. He wants them to be divided. He wants them to, in other words, go astray and commit idol worship. So Satan encourages that for those people, right? And but at the same time, I mean, these are toxic individuals, and it's in the favor of the believers that these people are separated, because these people are, essentially polluted with idol worship, and they will spread their lies and infect other people. If they're around the believers, they will, make them turn them into the same kind, So, everything is in accordance with God's will. So we shouldn't feel sad or grieve over any of it.
Subhanallah, right? Good points, brother.
Yeah, and it was a good point brought up, with the verses about how, people who harbor evil thoughts about God aren't just limited, like, to people who are, just thinking bad about God, but, in a sense, if they're thinking that, or they're promoting, you know, by their speech or talking about it, or if they're just thinking about giving God's qualities to another human being, um, like the example that was given with Muhammad, I think can forgive you, right? That's his quality, his trait, and his alone. It doesn't belong to anybody else. Only he can forgive you. He's the forgiver, most merciful. And giving that to Jesus is just blatantly bad and unjust. Telling or thinking that somebody else can forgive your sins. So
Sure, good point. Yeah, also I think Mashallah Huda mentioned another good point about uh, the people who have evil thoughts about God. The example of circumcision being one of them too, because you're having because God says nothing bad comes from Him, and then and if someone starts to think that God advocates this painful process, a mutilation of His creation that causes pain and suffering and even death, and you're attributing it to God, that God would, like for example, when the messenger says, people who harbor such an evil thought about God to think that, God would order Abraham to kill his son, are not going to enter paradise, just having that thought. So people who are thinking along the same lines that, God would authorize, such an evil practice that mutilates people and deprives them, of their God-given rights in that sense, God-given blessings, that they even many people think that because they don't have a son, for example, or they're not married, that they can think whatever they want. It's not going to matter because they're never going to have to make that decision. But even those people, it's not even that they have to make a decision, but once they have vocalized it that they believe in whatever they believe, that's enough basically for them to go astray, to convict them. God holds us responsible for our thoughts. And if you think that the Quran is not complete, you have fallen into idolatry, right? If you attribute a lie to God, you don't have to practice that thing, the moment you've made that lie, you've agreed to it, you're guilty. So likewise, people have other thoughts about God where people attribute other lies to God or attribute bad things to God, So we have to remember that, I mean, nothing bad comes from God, and especially attributing lies like that, these will obviously, God is, watching everything, and these people are going to be held responsible, and it's not something that should be taken lightly by these people. People make lies about God and lead people astray without even realizing what they're doing. They think it's not a big deal, right? I mean, people just do it so casually. So, are there any comments or questions from anyone? Okay, if there are no comments or questions from anyone, God willing, we can conclude our study. So, thank you all for joining us. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you. Assalamu alaikum.